We just received another huge order of Lavinia stamps, and in today's video I'll show you some of the brand new designs, samples I created, and give you some ideas for working with them. This order includes more than 50 new styles. Some are brand new and just released, while others are new to us. Part of that is word stamps and text stamps like this, and I have seen Tracy use them, and though I didn't get to them today, I've discovered as I watch her work that they are actually very instrumental in creating some interesting effects. Whether it's working on a card or a scene like I'm going to show you, there's lots of reasons to use words. Now, also included in this order are things like castles and houses, because yes, fairies also need a place to live along with the rest of us. There's shops. This is, I think, shops 2. In the sample I'm going to show you in a moment, you'll see that I've used shops 1. So it doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily have to have a fairy in your piece for it to be really nice and effective. There's also lots of foliage, some trees, hangy things like this, fiddlehead ferns. I mean, there's all kinds of elements that you can use. Oops, that's a house. To frame your piece to create all those other elements that go into making this look quite realistic. So with that said, I am using the Lavinia Scenescapes today as a means to get started quickly. With the background already done, I don't actually have to do all that much. It's just a question of choosing my stamps and then going ahead and getting started. So this is named Nurture. You're going to see me work on this, and you're going to see that the sample I did, this is named Fairy Dance, was done on this. So these really are an awesome way to play without having to actually stop to create backgrounds. So let's bring this in. Alright, so this is Nurture. Let's kill the glare. This is Nurture, and this is a piece that I started several months ago. This long fir tree here was one that, good grief, was one that I did not intend to have it kind of faint looking like that. I just didn't ink it correctly, and so I got that very faint image. But what I did was use this stamp, which is named Moon Pods, and I stamped it over that, so now it's kind of in the background, kind of, if there was mist, it would be off into the mist. Those strategically placed moon pods means I can cover it up and move on because I think it's fine just the way that it is. Alright, so with that said, let's talk about ground, because your fairies are going to need to stand on something. Now they may do nothing more than stand on the bottom of the card, like, or the piece of paper, like they do here, or you can create an actual ground to sort of place everything on so that they don't look like they're floating. Now this does not look like it's floating, but this even cements the I'm standing on the ground idea a bit more. So ordinarily I would actually put the ground in first and then arrange my other elements on top, but I had this piece out, and so I decided to go ahead and just show you on here. Now this is a piece of printer paper that I tore, and what I'm going to do is kind of strategically place it so that I'm just going to catch the bottom of the bunny there. I'm going to leave these trees grounded on the bottom of the card. Although with that said, I could use some of the archival ink on my ink blending tool and just kind of edge this if I wanted to. So a mini ink blending tool, archival ink, and you'll notice that there's actually very little ink on here. I have done probably 6 or 8 grounds on various backgrounds, and you can see that this is not loaded with ink. I don't want it to be. So I'm just going to touch, let's bring this in the frame, I'm going to touch the corner of the ink, of the mini ink blending tool to the black. I'm going to smudge it around so that I know that I've got it on there and it's working, and then I'm going to place this and just go ahead and ever so lightly rub this on. Now what I'm trying to accomplish, and this is small so it's not always easy to do, but you can see I've got the tool tilted. It's because I want the darker part of this piece of ground to be at the top, and I want it to fade away. And that's pretty much what I got. Now if I wanted to come back and add a little bit more into the bunny, which I really should because it kind of looks a little odd, all I need to do is just the same thing. I'm trying to find a way to blend this in so that it's kind of seamless with the existing ground that's already there, and now I think that works just fine. Well, let's again kill the glare, which seems to be particularly bad today. Alright, so with that said, let me bring in the other stamps and the sample so that you can kind of see where I'm starting from. Some of them are mounted, some of them are in the package. Let's get this out of here so that I'm not working in damp ink. So this is the sample that I played with, and again, this is on that background named whatever it was I said a moment ago that it's named. Fairy Dust, Stardust, I can't remember what it's called. This is the piece, it's 6 by 6. I'm going to actually recreate it on something that is taller and skinnier. That's not what I'm looking for. I had this, again, very strategically placed, but I'll be darned if... Oh, here it is. Good grief. All right. So what I've done, again, I'm working on Nurture. So I've switched from a square orientation... Let's bring this out of the way. From a square orientation to this taller, more portrait style one, I'm going to use the same stamps. The only thing that I'm changing is that instead of using, can't put my hand on it, instead of using the Shop 1, which is this piece right here, I'm going to substitute, here we go, I'm going to substitute the Acorn House. I think this is called Acorn House. That's not what I'm looking for. Here we go. So this is called Acorn Dwelling. I'm going to substitute Acorn Dwelling because it's tall and it fits in with this overall shape. You can see that I've already got the ground on. I've got a little bit of these, which are fairy buds, I think they're called. I've already got one of those in place. So in a moment I'll come back. I will show you how I go ahead and recreate the square version of this on this rectangularly oriented piece. Remembering that clear stamps do not include cushion, you want to be sure to have a small stack of printer paper like this available to place your scenescape on or whatever the background is. It's going to provide a cushion and it's important to getting crisp results, and obviously you'll want to make certain that your ink pad is not all dried out. This is archival and I'm working with it because if I want to come back and do anything over the top, I know it's permanent and nothing is going to change. So as I said, I'm going to swap out the Acorn Dwelling for the fairy house, excuse me, the fairy shop that I did in this one right here. So with that said, I find these indexing sheets really useful when it comes time to think about how I want to place an element. Because there are times when I might put this to one side and I might not realize the ink is wet, and if I turn this and try to place it and I slip, I'm liable to end up putting ink where I don't mean to, whereas with this, that's not going to happen. So I've played with this enough that I know I want one of the small ones here hanging off the side, and then I'm going to bring this one in about like this. I don't want it to be the same height as this. I don't think that that's going to be attractive to the eye. And then I'm going to come in, this is Moon Pods. I think I'm going to come in with the small Moon Pod and I'm going to put it in here. Our eye really is drawn to odd numbers of things, and so with that in mind I've got a 1 and then I'm going to make a 3. Now it's going to be a tight 3, but there's still going to be 3 distinct images. So with that said, here comes the small ones, the small one rather, of the fairy buds. I keep wanting to call this pods and it is not a pod. Alright. So I'm going to skew this down and over to the side. I want a chunk of this pretty much hanging off the background. I only want to see part of this. So with that inked, I'm just going to come and apply firm pressure with my thumb. Of course, normally when I do this it doesn't make a sound, but today it's going to make a squeaky sound, so we'll just not do it that way. Go ahead and lift that up, and there is my piece. So let's get rid of this. I'm actually going to put it on the index sheet because I know I'm done with it for the moment, and bring in the large one, which is right here. Now when I do this, I tend not to create scenes that require masking. Especially with these, you can stamp them one on top of the other, and I find that they kind of all blend together and they look like a group of foliage, so I'm not too worried about that. I mean, there are certainly times when you'd probably want to, but I try to avoid that because I'm lazy and I don't feel like standing there stamping pieces and then cutting them out to mask. Alright, that looks pretty good. Go ahead and put this down. Apply nice even pressure with my thumb so I know everything is in contact with that background. And then go ahead and lift it up. Get rid of this stamp, put it on the index sheet. So now I'm going to bring in the Moon Pod. I'm going to use the small one. Now, one of the things to bear in mind, if you ever have need to curve things with something that's really thin like that, you actually can. So it allows you some freedom to manipulate the image that you're going to actually see when you stamp it. Alright, so I want this one to be pretty low. Let's keep it right about here. And then go ahead and press that image in place. And there it is. So next, I have the acorn dwelling. Now, ordinarily what I do, the first time I ink any polymer stamp, and probably most any stamp, I like to test stamp it once and make certain that I've inked it correctly and I'm getting the results that I expect. So let's just go ahead and do it on here. There's nothing quite like the freedom of stamping something and not caring what it looks like. Otherwise you tend to be so focused on it. Alright, that looks good. So let's get that out of here just because it's a little distracting. And now, bearing in mind that this is still wet, I don't exactly know where the indexing sheet is, so I'm just going to hold tightly onto this. I'm going to put this here about like this. I don't want it centered. I like this arrangement a lot, so that works for me. Let's go ahead and ink this. And I just touched my finger to the ink pad, or to the inked surface. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now, I am aligning the feet, if you will, of these stones with this hill, so it looks like it's sitting kind of where it should be, and it's not propped up and floating in any way, shape, or form. Because this is a big stamp, I'm pressing well in the center. This is where the paper comes in handy and is really important. Alright, that should be fine. Go ahead and pick this up. Alrighty, and that looks great. So here's what I have so far. Loving this, really like it a lot. Really the last piece of this, if you look in here, is to take the pine cone thingy, I can't think of what it's called, the pine cone thingy, and arrange that around the top. Now I don't think I'm going to bring it around the sides as much as I did here. I think I'm just going to put a little bit here, maybe scatter them on an angle and then curve back this way. So the thing to know about doing this, I always find I get far better results when I apply the ink pad to the stamp, especially something that's fairly delicate. I find it's really easy, at least for me, if I'm inking that way, I way over ink things and it just never turns out well. So because I think I'm going to go a little bit further than I had originally planned, I want to make certain that I've got that inked enough. So ultimately I want the longer pieces to be along the edge, the two sides, sorry, and then I'm going to shorten them up as I come across the top here. Alright, I like that. That looks good. So I'm going to kind of build my frame over here too. Again, I don't want things to be symmetrical. I think our eye finds symmetry pleasing in some cases, but in others I think it works far better to not have symmetry. Alright, almost there. Maybe one or two more. Just go ahead, drop a little bit right there. Okay, re-ink. Let's see what I want to do here. Alright, so I got a bad impression right there. What I need to do is camouflage that, so let's ink this up a little bit higher and find a way that looks better. So that will camouflage it, and sometimes it's also nice to overlap things so that every one of these elements isn't identical. And with that said, I really think I'm only going to put one more in here. And I am going to, well, let's turn it a little bit so we have more of the bow shape. And then I'm ready to call this one done. So what remains is embellishments, and for me that generally takes the form of things like stickles or liquid pearls, and so easy enough to do. You grab your stickles, you just come in, remembering that stickles are not dimensional when they do dry, they are going to be completely flat. But if I wanted to do something along this moon, I could do that. If I wanted to put some stickles on the little bud elements in these fairy buds, I could certainly do that. So however you want to work with these stamps, I don't think there's a thing you can do with them that isn't going to turn out marvelous. Whether you're just creating a scene like this that you might mount on a canvas or stick under glass, if you're working on cards, if you want elements for a journal page, I think that the Lavinia stamps work beautifully for all of those things.